No, I was a plain showgirl for about 6 years, and then they decided to go topless, and I said, I won't do it unless you make me the star of the show.
Valerie Perrine was an Oscar-nominated actress who charmed Superman on screen. But her real life was a horror film Hollywood would never dare to make. In a single year, she saw one lover die from a gunshot before her eyes, while another was slaughtered by the Manson family. Her journey from a topless Vegas showgirl to a global sex symbol was legendary, but the shocking tragedies that followed would shatter her world. This is the untold story of the curse that followed Hollywood's brightest star. Valerie Perrine was born on September 3, 1943, in the coastal city of Galveston, Texas, from her very first day. Her life was defined by the intersection of two completely opposite worlds. Her father, Kenneth Perrine, was a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army, a man whose life was structured by order, discipline, and duty. In stark contrast, her mother, Renee Perrine, was a professional dancer who had once performed in the glamorous revues of Broadway in New York City, a world of artistic expression, freedom, and spontaneity. This unusual combination of a strict military upbringing and a free-spirited artistic influence would shape Valerie's character for the rest of her life, creating a personality that was both resilient and rebellious. Because of her father's military career, the Perrine family was constantly on the move. Valerie's childhood was not rooted in a single hometown, but was instead a continuous series of relocations. She lived on various military bases across the United States before moving overseas to Japan, and later to Paris, France. This nomadic lifestyle meant she had to learn to adapt quickly to new environments and cultures. But it also made it difficult to form lasting friendships or feel a sense of belonging. She grew up as a classic Army brat, a child who was disciplined and well-traveled, yet always felt like an outsider. This experience fostered a deep sense of independence and a powerful desire to forge her own path, separate from the rigid structures that had defined her youth. When she reached college age, Valerie enrolled in a psychology program, but she quickly found that the structured world of academia was not for her. The theoretical lectures and predictable routines felt stifling to her restless spirit. She made the decisive choice to drop out of her studies, driven by a powerful feeling that her destiny lay elsewhere, in a world that was more vibrant, more unpredictable, and more exciting. She set her sights on the one city that embodied all of those things: Las Vegas. Arriving in the dazzling desert city, Valerie did not have to wait long to find her place. Her striking height, statuesque figure, and captivating beauty immediately caught the attention of talent scouts. She was hired as a showgirl in the legendary French-style revue, Lido de Paris, which was the headline show at the iconic Stardust Hotel and Casino. In the 1960s, the Stardust was a symbol of Las Vegas opulence, and its stage was one of the most prestigious in the world for a performer like her. Life in Las Vegas was an intoxicating whirlwind of glamour, hard work, and temptation. Every night, Valerie would step onto the stage wearing extravagant costumes that were masterpieces of design. These outfits were incredibly heavy, laden with thousands of colorful feathers and sparkling jewels. Yet they were also incredibly revealing. In a bold move that was characteristic of the show, she performed topless, her body covered only by a tiny G-string. Under the intense, multicolored neon lights, she became a living work of art, a vision of sensuality and confidence that mesmerized audiences. Her work as a top-tier showgirl provided her with an incredible income. She earned around $800 a week, a very large sum of money for that time, which allowed her to live a life of luxury and excess. After the curtain fell each night, her life continued in the high-energy environment of the casinos and exclusive clubs. She attended lavish parties that lasted until dawn, where champagne flowed freely, and the guest lists included wealthy businessmen. high-rolling gamblers, and even notorious gangsters. Valerie embraced this lifestyle with complete abandon, determined to experience everything the city had to offer. She dove headfirst into a world of casual sex, heavy drinking, and experimental drug use. She later openly admitted to taking the powerful hallucinogenic drug LSD more than 400 times, viewing it as part of her journey of self-discovery and a way to fully immerse herself in the psychedelic culture of the era. For her, Las Vegas was a technicolor dream, a place where fantasy and reality blurred, and where she could live without limits. She was living in the moment, completely unaware that the thrilling indulgences of her youth would cast long, dark shadows over the rest of her life. After several years in the glittering chaos of Las Vegas, Valerie felt a familiar restlessness return. She had conquered the world of the showgirl, but she knew she was capable of more. She decided it was time for a new challenge and made the move to Los Angeles, the heart of the American film industry, with the ambition of becoming a serious actress. In 1972, she landed her first significant film role, playing the beautiful and tragic character Montana Wildhack in the cinematic adaptation of Kurt Vonnegut's acclaimed novel, Slaughterhouse-Five. Although it was a supporting role, her performance was magnetic. Her natural charisma and undeniable screen presence made a powerful impression on critics and filmmakers, proving that she was more than just a pretty face from a Las Vegas stage. The doors to Hollywood had officially swung open for her. The absolute pinnacle of her acting career arrived just 2 years later, in 1974. The legendary director and choreographer Bob Fosse cast her in his biographical film Lenny, about the controversial and brilliant comedian Lenny Bruce. Valerie was given the pivotal role of Honey Bruce, Lenny's wife, who was a stripper and his troubled soulmate. The part seemed tailor-made for her. She drew upon her own experiences in the world of stage performance and her deep understanding of a life lived on the fringes of society. Her portrayal of Honey was raw, vulnerable, and incredibly authentic. She wasn't just acting. She was channeling a life she understood intimately. Her performance was a revelation, and it captivated the entire film world. For her work in Lenny, Valerie Perrine received a nomination for the Academy Award for Best Actress, the highest honor in the industry. She went on to win the Best Actress award at the prestigious Cannes Film Festival and also received the BAFTA Award for Most Promising Newcomer to Leading Film Roles. In a remarkable journey, the topless showgirl from Las Vegas had transformed herself into a critically acclaimed, internationally recognized movie star. Her success continued to grow. In 1978, she was cast in a role that would make her a household name across the globe. She played Eve Teschmacher, the clever and morally conflicted girlfriend of the villainous Lex Luthor, in the blockbuster film Superman. Her witty and charming performance provided a perfect counterpoint to the film's epic scale, and audiences fell in love with her. She reprised the popular role in the 1980 sequel, Superman 2, with her flowing blonde hair, tall and curvaceous figure, and sparkling personality. Valerie Perrine became one of the definitive sex symbols of the 1970s. Her career was at its absolute zenith, and it seemed as though her star would only continue to rise. Just as Valerie's professional life was soaring to incredible heights, her personal life was struck by a series of unimaginable tragedies. These devastating events occurred in rapid succession, inflicting wounds on her soul that would never fully heal and forever altering the course of her emotional life. The first catastrophe occurred in 1969. At the time, Valerie was deeply in love with a man named Bill Harmon. He was a wealthy and successful importer who shared her adventurous spirit and zest for life. Bill was also an avid collector of firearms. Their relationship was serious and filled with joy, and they had decided to spend the rest of their lives together. They were actively planning their wedding. With the ceremony scheduled to take place in just 1 month, Valerie was blissfully happy, convinced that she had finally found the great love of her life. But fate had a cruel and violent plan. One day, while the couple was together, a horrific accident unfolded in a split second. Bill was handling one of the guns from his collection when it accidentally discharged. The bullet fired from the weapon struck a hard surface, ricocheted, and changed its trajectory. In a tragic twist of physics, the deflected bullet flew back and struck Bill, piercing his lung. He collapsed and died almost instantly, right there in front of a horrified Valerie. Her world imploded in that single, deafening moment. The beautiful wedding she had been dreaming of was replaced by a grim and sudden funeral. The man she loved, the man she was about to marry, was gone forever in the most senseless way imaginable. The grief was overwhelming, a profound shock that left her completely shattered. For years afterward, whenever she spoke of him, she would refer to Bill Harmon as the love of my life. The trauma of witnessing his death would haunt her for decades. In the aftermath, Valerie was lost in a fog of sorrow. She tried to cope by throwing herself into her burgeoning acting career and the busy social scene of Hollywood. It was during this fragile period that she met and began a new relationship with Jay Sebring. Jay was one of the most famous and influential men in Hollywood, a celebrity hairstylist whose clients included the biggest male stars of the era, such as Steve McQueen, Frank Sinatra, and Paul Newman. He was a charismatic and sophisticated man who became a source of comfort and stability for Valerie as she struggled to piece her life back together. A new romance began to blossom between them, offering a glimmer of hope after so much darkness. But destiny was not finished with its cruel games. Just a few months after Bill Harmon's death, a second, even more shocking tragedy was about to strike. Jay Sebring was a close friend of the actress Sharon Tate and her husband, the director Roman Polanski. On the evening of August 8, 1969, Valerie received an invitation to join Jay for a small gathering at Sharon Tate's home at 10050 Cielo Drive in Beverly Hills. For reasons she could never fully explain, perhaps she was feeling tired. Or maybe it was a subconscious premonition. Valerie decided not to go. She stayed home instead. That simple decision saved her life, but it also plunged her into another nightmare. The next morning, the world awoke to the horrifying news of a brutal massacre. Sharon Tate, who was 8.5 months pregnant, had been viciously murdered along with 4 other people in her home. The killers were members of Charles Manson's murderous cult. One of the victims found slain alongside Sharon Tate was Jay Sebring. When Valerie heard the news, she was paralyzed with shock and disbelief. For the second time in less than a year, a man she loved had been violently taken from her. The first was an accident. The second, a savage act of murder. The cumulative weight of these 2 losses was unbearable. It felt like a curse, a terrible cloud of doom that followed her. She had survived, but a significant part of her spirit had died along with Bill and Jay. These back-to-back tragedies left a permanent scar on Valerie's ability to form deep, lasting romantic attachments. In the years that followed, she was romantically linked to several famous men, including actors Jeff Bridges and Elliot Gould. She even had a brief relationship with Dodi Fayed, the man who would later die in the car crash with Princess Diana. Despite these relationships, Valerie Perrine never married and never had children. It is likely that the profound trauma of her early losses made her fearful of committing herself so completely to another person ever again. She chose to live a fiercely independent life, traveling the world and embracing her freedom. But beneath her vibrant and adventurous exterior, there was a persistent and profound sense of loneliness. The ghosts of the 2 men she had lost in 1969 were never far away. a constant, silent reminder of the happiness that had been so cruelly snatched from her. Following the massive international success of the Superman films, Valerie Perrine's career seemed unstoppable. She was a globally recognized star with a unique blend of comedic talent and bombshell appeal. However, a single professional misstep would soon bring her golden era to an abrupt and devastating end. In 1980, she signed on to star in a musical film titled Can't Stop the Music. The movie was conceived as a fictionalized and flamboyant account of the creation of the disco group The Village People, and producers hoped it would be a huge box office hit by capitalizing on the disco craze. Instead, it became a legendary cinematic disaster. Can't Stop the Music was universally panned by critics, who ridiculed its nonsensical plot, cheesy dialogue, and over-the-top musical numbers. Audiences stayed away, and the film was a colossal financial failure. Its reputation was so abysmal that it became one of the primary inspirations for the creation of the Golden Raspberry Awards, or Razzies, an annual ceremony dedicated to honoring the worst films of the year. In the very first Razzie Awards ceremony, Valerie received a nomination for Worst Actress for her role in the film. The stigma of being associated with such a high-profile flop was incredibly damaging to her career. The prestigious film offers from A-list directors stopped coming. The complex, challenging roles she had previously been offered were replaced with supporting parts in low-budget movies and guest appearances on television shows. The brilliant light that had shone so brightly in the 1970s had been suddenly and unceremoniously extinguished. Although she continued to work steadily as an actress for many more years, she was never able to regain her status as a leading lady in Hollywood. Her A-list career had been effectively killed by a single disco musical. As the years passed, and the pain of her romantic and professional tragedies began to fade into the background, a new and far more insidious tragedy began to emerge. This final adversary was the most relentless of all, for it launched an attack on the one thing that had defined her public image, her physical self. The first warning signs appeared around 2011. Valerie started to notice a persistent tremor in her hands. At first, her doctors believed it was an essential tremor, a common neurological disorder that causes involuntary shaking. They prescribed medication, but her condition did not improve. In fact, the tremors grew progressively worse, spreading and becoming more pronounced. Finally, in 2015, after undergoing a new series of extensive medical tests, she received a definitive and heartbreaking diagnosis. Valerie Perrine had Parkinson's disease. This incurable neurodegenerative disorder attacks the central nervous system, progressively destroying the brain cells that produce dopamine, which leads to a gradual loss of muscle control. For a woman whose physical beauty and vitality had been central to her identity and her career, this diagnosis was a particularly cruel blow. The disease advanced with a devastating speed. It relentlessly stripped away her physical abilities. One by one, her ability to walk deteriorated, and the once energetic woman became confined to a wheelchair. The disease affected the muscles in her throat and mouth, slurring her speech and making it difficult for her to communicate clearly. Eventually, even the most basic human function of swallowing became a difficult and dangerous act, putting her at risk of choking. The body that had once captivated the world on movie screens was now betraying her in the most fundamental ways. Yet, Valerie refused to surrender to her illness. She faced Parkinson's with the same fighting spirit she had shown throughout her life. In 2017, she underwent a high-risk and complex surgical procedure known as deep brain stimulation. The surgery involved implanting electrodes deep within her brain, which would be connected to a generator in her chest. The hope was that the electrical impulses would help to regulate her brain activity and control the debilitating tremors and stiffness. Tragically, the surgery was not successful. It failed to provide the relief she and her doctors had hoped for, and her symptoms continued to worsen. In her final years, Valerie lived a quiet and secluded life in her Beverly Hills home. Her condition had progressed to the point where she was completely dependent on a team of round-the-clock caregivers for all of her daily needs. She could no longer perform even the simplest tasks for herself, despite the immense physical suffering and the loss of her independence. Everyone who knew her was amazed by her unwavering spirit. She never complained or expressed self-pity. She faced her devastating illness with incredible courage and a remarkable sense of humor. Her famous, radiant smile remained, though it was now framed by the physical realities of her long and difficult battle. During this challenging period, a final, poignant piece of recognition came her way. In 2016, her close friend filmmaker Stacey Souther created a short documentary simply titled Valerie. The film was an intimate and moving portrait of her life, chronicling her journey from the stages of Las Vegas to the heights of Hollywood, and focusing on her private and courageous fight against Parkinson's disease. The documentary served as a powerful tribute, reminding the world of the immense talent that had been overlooked for too long, and celebrating the indomitable spirit of a woman who refused to be defined by her tragedies. After a long and arduous battle that spanned more than 15 years, Valerie Perrine's journey through a life of extreme highs and devastating lows finally came to a peaceful end. She passed away on March 23, 2026, in the comfort of her own home in Beverly Hills. She was 82 years old. The official cause of death was listed as complications arising from her long struggle with Parkinson's disease. According to those who were with her, her final moments were serene. Her closest friends were by her side, ensuring she was not alone. They later shared that she departed from this world surrounded by love, fulfilling her last wish for a peaceful and dignified end. The tumultuous and often painful story of her life concluded in a moment of quiet grace. Valerie Perrine was a woman of extraordinary strength, captivating charm, and undeniable talent. She lived a life that was larger than fiction, a whirlwind of experiences that most people could never imagine. Yet, that extraordinary life was relentlessly shadowed by tragedy. She suffered the loss of two great loves in the most horrific ways possible. Her brilliant career, which burned so brightly, was extinguished far too soon by a single misstep. And in her final chapter, she was forced to endure a cruel and debilitating disease that systematically destroyed the physical grace that had once been her trademark. Despite all the pain and loss, Valerie Perrine never expressed regret for the technicolor life she had chosen to live. She embraced every experience, both the glorious and the heartbreaking. With a fearless and open heart, her story stands as a powerful and haunting reminder of how fragile happiness can be and how unpredictable fate truly is. The spotlights of Hollywood may fade and physical beauty may wither, but the courageous spirit of Valerie Perrine, a woman who faced every triumph and every tragedy head-on, will be remembered forever.